Alrighty, folks, we are back with your favorite podcast show of the week. This is Location Weekly. It's episode number 477, and we are recording live on Tuesday, August the 11th. Brianna, how are you?
I am hanging in there. Still working in the bedroom, living the dream. How are you?
Yeah, I'm okay. It's another week, another show, some interesting news, in our world, and you know, school's almost back, and baseball's back, and whatever. Just trying to stay connected and stay on top of everything. My Maple Leafs have been eliminated, so I'm not happy about that. But the
We're clinging to
Raptors are
anything
playing
that
well.
is like normal, right?
They're always eliminated, right? There's hope, and then there's not, and then it's over, and then, but there's always the Raptors. So there you go. We can kind of be happy about that. So there you go. So that's where I'm at. So we've got four stories for you this week. We did have a guest, but he had to reschedule, so we'll have him next week instead. So as usual, I'll let Aubriana kick us off.
All right. Well, this is a very similar story. We've been hearing a lot of these stories lately, but another company is joining the identity link, identity, solution, graph, panel, whatever you want to call it. And this comes from Nustar. So Nustar, we know them as having a ton of consumer data through various acquisitions over the years and a lot of different business that they have. I think it was like Targus that they even had acquired back in the day. So they're launching their version of this identity graph, and it's called Fabric. For them to be launching this makes sense because they have, like I mentioned, they have a ton of data that they have kind of streamed together over the years. And so they are really doing this, they're saying, to improve omni-channel measurement in the post-cookie world, which is right around the corner here. We see a lot of companies that are scrambling to try and put something together, offer, their version of what this identity graphs are going to look like, how to streamline this, how to measure media and digital advertising dollars when cookies are gone. And now, with the deprecation of the IDFA and what those implications are being, there's lots of shifts happening. And so this is yet another one. So this will interact with their One ID, which is their identity resolution system. And really the benefits that they're touting are cookie-free omni-channel marketing measurement, consumer data enrichment and segmentation, media management, and onboarding and identity resolution. So, I don't think there's anything really exciting like yet. What I'm excited to see is what's happening like 6, 12 months from now. Who's still hanging on, who's getting the most new customers, where are those customers moving from? Like how is this beneficial? What's the lift and increase that they're seeing? Or what's the difference in the cookie based measurement to this new approach that these companies are offering, like Nustar? So, Fabric, I like the name. I think that's a pretty cool name there. But like there's a lot that's going to work itself out in the wash that's happening between technology changes, advertising industry changes, COVID changes, and the environment. So there's just so much shift that's happening. Like we don't know where any of this is going to fall, in my opinion. But what I like to see is that there's more and more companies that are thinking ahead of things, trying to put themselves in a good position to be ready when all of these things start to happen, and hopefully, not be more proactive versus reactive later on. So, yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this is a company we've been tracking for years and years. In the LVMA world, they're, I think, maybe perhaps better positioned than some to kind of bring a solution out in this area. As you said, many are trying, many are attempting to figure out, how they build some sort of identity-based solution in a post-cookie world. But not all are going to survive, right? I think that's the reality of where we're going. And I think, perhaps Newstar is one of those companies that can, weather the storm and come out with something here that, can help the industry because they've been at it for so long. They've got the breadth, they've got all the other acquisitions that they've done over the years to kind of give them that sort of beachhead and that sort of capstone to kind of work with. To kind of build upon. So I think there's a strong foundation, I guess is what I'm saying, that enables them to do this. It's not just, hey, we decided to put something together and we've got a solution now. There is strong underpinnings here for what they're doing. You know, I think these companies are correct in trying to find a solution and propose a solution and put a solution into the market. I'm with you. Like 12 months from now, who knows? Like what the regulatory framework is going to look like. And whether or not even these solutions are going to be viable. What consumers are going to say. And ultimately the legislators are going to say about linking all these data sets together and still somewhat identifying people, right? I don't know, right? I was I don't know if you saw the Wall Street Journal piece that we put out just this week. So Byron Tao, who's a reporter for the Wall Street Journal, does a lot of writing on how government is using this data in perhaps what they might think are appropriate, but from a consumer point of view may not be so appropriate ways. And so I look at it and I go, okay, this is interesting. But where are the protections still yet for consumers, right? Even in this post-cookie world, there's still got to be, the right disclosure, the right consent, the right, sort of articulation of value in terms of how you're getting the data in the first place. And so, I still think, whether it's the way we've been doing SDKs, collecting data, or we're talking about, matching, in a cookieless environment, I think there still needs to be a proper disclosure type of arrangement between the company and the consumer around the use of the data. And so no matter what, I think that needs to be front and center in everything that we do. So that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think that it's, I always say that it's a very interesting time right now where we have legislation really doing things that is ultimately empowering the largest tech giants that there are, and it's not allowing the smaller, to medium-sized players to stay in the advertising space. However, at the same time, we have government that is clearly using the same data in ways that is quite questionable to consumer privacy, when it comes to tracking protesters and illegal immigrants and things of that nature. You wonder, like, where do you draw the line, right? So I am right there with you. I think that, what is good for advertising, which really is what has powered free internet and free news and applications for so long, is really changing. And like they are, I think that a lot of the legislation and privacy acts are pressuring the wrong areas, right? And so I think that it really is going to be up to consumers to decide what's right for them. But how we do that is a very big question. I don't know that anybody has like a streamlined view into this is the steps that you follow. It's just another one of those unknowns right now, but it will be interesting to see how these things fall into place.
There you go. All right. Moving on to our second story. So Apple has made another interesting acquisition in the last week. They've acquired a Canadian company based out of Montreal up here called Mobiwave. And I think this is very, very cool. So these guys, what Mobiwave enables is for any iPhone, in this case, to be turned into a mobile payment terminal. And so we've been talking a lot, especially in kind of the COVID world that we all live in, about the importance of, touch-free, based payments and those kinds of things. And Mobiwave is really sort of, at the forefront of all of that, in that we're not talking about taking your phone and using Apple Pay to kind of tap on the terminal. We're almost talking about the reverse of that, whereby your phone is the payment terminal now. And so anything that has an NFC chip in it can be tapped onto your phone and to complete a transaction. So I'm thinking about, Uber drivers or, anything like that where, people have just got a phone, instead of them having to carry another terminal device, or anything else like a separate piece of hardware, if they could just use their own phones to as the payment terminal, and somebody like me, the pizza guy shows up and I can just tap my NFC chip card onto that person's phone and the payment goes through. That's brilliant. It's easy. It's seamless in that way. The other interesting thing I thought about this acquisition. So apparently they paid about $100 million for it. They didn't disclose any other terms, and they've kept the team. But prior to this, Mobiwave had done a pilot program last year here in Canada with Samsung, and Samsung is an investor, or prior to the acquisition, in Mobiwave as well. So that's kind of interesting that here you have Apple acquiring a company that has investors, as Samsung as an investor. So that's kind of interesting. And Apple seems to be on an acquisition tear lately. They go in these spurts, and so they've previously acquired in the last number of months Dark Sky, the weather data company. They acquired a VR company called NextVR. We've talked a lot about where VR is going in the last little while. So I think this is a great acquisition. Great, obviously, for Canadian tech scene as well. Super. I'm always excited about that. And there you go. So yeah, every iPhone is now a payment terminal.
Yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see how, a company like Apple and even Google are just so diverse in their acquisitions, and they're thinking about basically every single piece of a consumer's life. So whether that's mapping for directions, payments, and exchanging money, to AR and VR and advertising and privacy and all the different things that they are, just working on. It's really, I don't know, it's interesting. One of the things, like, I'm an Apple user, and I have Apple TV and a MacBook Pro and an iPhone and an iPad and all those different things. And I love how things work together and make my life easier. And I think that, that's really what, a company like Apple is built on. But, what you start to not love is the fact that every dollar is going to the same company. And sometimes, like, the little guys, it's harder for them to even have a chance to break in to a vertical. And we live in such an entrepreneurial time that you want to encourage the underdog. I mean, this, right? Being part of a startup, you want to encourage, that innovation and feed that. So it's getting harder and harder to think of new things and create and innovate whenever you've got big guys like buying up these smaller companies that can just overnight turn them into, billion-dollar companies. But I think that it's interesting, all the different avenues that they're considering, and it'll be interesting to see how they kind of expand upon this within their own technology. So
Yeah, there you go.
all right, so our next story is United Airlines, and obviously traveling right now is like a really weird it's a weird thing, right? Most people that I talk to that have been traveling have said, like, the airports are empty. It was the easiest, time that I had to get in and out of, TSA and all those different things. But, one thing that people are conscious of, obviously, is the safety measures that each airline is taking. How are they, are they doing anything to help with social distancing at all on the plane? How clean are they? All of these different things. So United Airlines has responded in an effort to help answer all these questions with like an automated assistant through a chatbot that can answer all of their customers' questions, about flying and sanitation and all of that. So you can text the word clean to Fly UA, and that just starts the chat service. So they can answer questions like, are the United clubs open? Are there any changes to in-flight services? How to prepare, what are, air quality questions, like, what are you guys doing? So, I think that's pretty interesting. In particular, obviously, there were times that I think there's been, some airlines have required masks or like done, not putting people in middle seats, and others haven't. So it's just been like, I've heard different things, and I know that the rules are constantly changing and they're figuring things out. So United has been requiring customers to wear masks on the flights, and now they're also going to have to wear them while waiting to board their flights. And then they're also running what they call HEPA, which is high efficiency particulate air, which is like a filtration system. So they're doing this during the boarding, during in-flight, and deboarding. So, or deplaning, whatever you call it. So they are, trying to keep the air, I think, as like sanitary and clean as possible. Filtering it, and obviously business is declining right now for a lot of airlines, and so I think they're trying to do whatever they can on the emotional advertising and connection and marketing that they're doing, to make sure that the customers that are willing to fly or considering flights will feel safe and feel, as at ease as possible during all of this uncertainty. So I think this is good. It's nice to be able to get some really quick automated answers and not have to like wait on hold or scroll through an FAQ page. So I think this is a good this is a good feature that hopefully a lot of customers will be able to use, and maybe United can, I don't know, keep some business going, right?
Yeah, it's a challenge, right? You and I both typically travel a lot and haven't gone anywhere, during this time, really. So it's been interesting. Um, it's yeah, I hear the same stories from people I know that have taken trips that the airports are empty and the planes are, in some ways, safer than ever from a cleanliness and health point of view, whether it's air quality or sanitation or whatever the case might be. Certainly they're doing everything I think that they can, to try and help people feel more comfortable, kind of coming back and feel safe. But at the end of the day, I don't know. Is it from a leisure perspective? Does it matter? Do you want to do that, right? Like, is it? I think from a business point of view, people need to travel and will travel, to do what they need to do. But do you really want to sit on a plane, for 6 hours, 8 hours, wearing a mask and is that an enjoyable experience for people? I don't know. I at first glance, I'm going to say no, right? Like, but if that's what you need to do, that's what you need to do, I guess, right? To make this better. So, I think the idea of using chatbots is something that's been growing across many different industries as a customer service tool. I think the travel industry overall is one that's really embraced this technology in the same piece that you're referring to. In April this year, the Department of Transportation has seen 25,000 complaints come in, 15 times more than usual. So, there's certainly people asking lots of questions and trying to give them easy automated answers to those questions with chatbots, I think is great. WestJet, which is one of the big Canadian airlines up here, was the very first airline to have a chatbot. Apparently, they reported a 1,671% increase in support tickets coming through their Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp channels during the first few weeks of COVID. So, obviously people are asking questions. People have, concerns. And so, I don't know that you could potentially even staff a call center, with this kind of volume, especially just as a peak situation, right? So I think having chatbots and deploying them in this way, I think is a good way, to go about it. So I like that United's kind of on this and they're kind of looking at it as a holistic, approach, not just customer service, but health and safety and all of it kind of all rolled together and kind of tying the responses to that. So good on them. All right, our final story. So here's an interesting thing. So Amazon apparently is in discussions to team up with Simon Properties Group, which is one of the world's biggest commercial property real estate companies, owning many, many shopping malls around the world. And as we've heard, especially during COVID, with the demise of Sears and J.C. Penney and potentially Nordstrom and many other of these big department store retailers, that means that there's a lot of sort of flagship space in these big shopping malls that may be unfilled. And here is Amazon, which is potentially experiencing some of their biggest growth ever during COVID, with everybody at home ordering everything, and always looking for how can they solve the last mile problem of getting people what they want as fast as humanly possible. And so, in terms of fulfillment centers, if you can get the fulfillment center that has the goods in place closer to the communities where these people are, that's how you can go about solving this. And so they're realizing, okay, as these big box, department stores are failing and that space becomes available in the local shopping mall, maybe we turn that space into an Amazon fulfillment center. And so that's the discussion that's going on between Amazon and Simon right now to say, which are the logical spaces that are becoming available for us to have a local community fulfillment center kind of hub in these properties. And I think it's a brilliant strategy. It's a great way to use the real estate. It may not be great for the potential future of the retail sector necessarily, because typically in a shopping mall environment, for all the other retailers in there, having that big flagship is sort of a draw that then drives additional traffic to as people walk through the mall to the other stores. So that certainly changes the dynamics of what's going on there. But I think from an Amazon point of view and from a Simon point of view, I think this is a no-brainer to me of bringing these types of things together. So I love it. I think it makes perfect sense. What are your thoughts?
I agree. I mean, there's commercial real estate right now is just so readily available, and the future of that I think is going to be very interesting, because what I think is that a lot of businesses are trying to figure out how can we avoid having the brick and mortar location altogether? Is that possible? Because that's a large part of overhead for a lot of businesses. And if you're doing things like, a store that you can just move, more direct to consumer or just completely online, is that more sustainable in the long term? Not being able to open your doors for periods of time is not something that you can really bank on. And so with Amazon, I think that it makes sense because they do need these fulfillment centers so that they can get things out easier, especially when you're thinking about, like, for us here in Atlanta, it's pretty easy. Like, we can get things same day. At the most, it's usually 2 days before we get something, but there's other areas where it takes a little longer to get, even if you're just like an hour or two outside of a larger city. So starting to use these fulfillment centers, I think is a great idea. And then in the longer term, what I could see Amazon doing is creating more pop-ups, because there's a ton of brands and even smaller stores that have their own spaces within Amazon, right? They use the Amazon platform for their stores, whether that's like a New Balance or whether that's a smaller kind of a private label type of thing. So, being able to maybe have those pop-ups once people are going out more to take part of that, those fulfillment centers, or, just do something that is more of an experience, right? To get people out, because it's something that's changing or it's seasonal. Those are the kinds of things that they can do longer term probably. So, yeah, I mean, it makes sense. And I would assume that they're also probably getting this at a very large discount.
You got to think, right? It reminds me a little bit up here. I don't know if you guys have these in the Atlanta area, but up here, IKEA a couple of years ago, like, we've got several of the sort of normal, very, very large IKEA stores. But then in the last couple of years, we've started to get like these small IKEA little fulfillment outlet places, where you go in and they're like in smaller communities, and you can kind of go in and they've got like their top 100 items, and then there's an ordering desk where you can order from the catalog, and a fulfillment center where you can pick up like all your stuff and whatever, to kind of bring it more local, right? Because not everybody can travel, into the big city where
Yeah.
IKEA is, right?
I know we were just talking about that.
Yeah.
a few weeks ago, I think,
Yeah, so
which
that's
is
kind of,
we don't have that here in Atlanta, to the best of my knowledge. But I think it's a great idea, and that's what is allowing people to get to where they, it's not a full inventory, but it's more of the most popular products, right?
yeah, exactly, exactly. So there
I
you
know
go.
that the Kmart, like my parents live in Greenville, South Carolina, which is not a huge city. I mean, it's not super rural, but they have transitioned the old Kmart into an Amazon fulfillment center. I mean, and that's just like a couple miles from their house. So it's interesting. My mom was saying, yeah, they're transforming it for Amazon, and it's going to be like you can go in and get stuff, but it's also going to be like a fulfillment center. So I guess, now they're saying, what else can we do that with? And it sounds like there's an abundance of these Sears and Penny's stores that are available.
Yeah, yeah. No, the opportunities are there. Like you got to find ways to reinvent, right, the space. And yeah, good on Simon. And I think the other property owners, we'll see Westfield and Cadillac and all the other guys kind of jump in and take similar approaches. I mean, it just makes sense, right? Yeah. So, all right, that's our show for this week. You've been listening to episode 477 of Location Weekly. Four great stories in there. And of course, we appreciate you tuning in every week. If you have ideas for stories, please let us know. Reach out to us, give us feedback in any way that you can. I also want to welcome our newest member of the LVMA that just joined in the last week. They're called Prodicio. They're a company based out of Paris, France, doing a lot of interesting work around privacy and location data. So check them out as well. You can find info on all our social channels. It was posted in the last couple of days. And yeah, just we thank you. And we'll see you next week for 478. Have a great week. Bye.
Bye.